Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well and happy October, my favorite time of the year. I got a couple of great encounters I'd like to share with you, and before we get into those encounters, a couple of links as well as an announcement. The announcement first. I have just interviewed someone about a Dogman encounter that is very fascinating and very horrifying. The proximity of the encounter to where I sit right now is very close. Also, the people that it happened to lead me to definitely not doubt it. I will hopefully be sharing that tomorrow night with you guys. Now on to the links. I, as you know, am a commercial-free channel, so I rely on my PayPal, Patreon, and merch link to help this channel continue to go and grow. Also, I have a second channel which is dedicated to creepypasta, fanfiction, and scary voice acting. Now, if that's anything that you're into, follow that link and give a couple of those stories a listen. You may just like them. Also, there's a story just posted by a good friend of mine, The Disciple. He wrote this story for my birthday, and I love it. And I'm pretty sure those who are into horror, humor, fiction will as well. So if that's something that you're into, follow that link and give it a listen. And with that, guys, I've taken enough of your time. Let's get on with these encounters. Shall we? Our first encounter of the evening. Back when I was in high school, my friend and I saw something I'd begun to refer to as the crawler. This was in Rossville, Illinois, nighttime and in a cemetery. I think it was probably late summer or early fall because I don't remember it being too cold out. Would have been between 2007 and 2010. I'm pretty sure the moon was full or close to it because visibility was very good. My friend and I used to walk this loop. We would leave her place and go down a block to the side road that led to a park. We then would turn left and cut across the park to the side entrance of the cemetery. The cemetery and park sat at the very southwest corner of town. Beyond that was just woods and cornfields. If we went straight across the cemetery, it would take us to the other side road that led us to Main Street and back to her house. We made it to the cemetery and were walking the main drive that split the property in half. There was a sudden noise that made us both stop. My friend started laughing nervously and asked if I heard the noise. I told her that I had seen what made the noise. To our left, I had seen something running behind the headstones. It was on all fours but humanoid. It had extremely pale skin and no hair and looked very thin. I remember it was so pale it almost reflected the moonlight. It moved so fast, too fast for any human I've ever seen on their hands and feet, that I couldn't see any details. It was in total profile, so I never saw the facial details. The way it ran was animal-like as well in its gait, where its feet came forward almost between or past its hands. Watch a video of a big cat or wild dog running and you'll see what I mean. We were both terrified and we just stood there panicking, listening to it move around. Just out of sight, well, we called one of our friends to come meet us and take us to the rest of the way to her house. Our friend finally came, and he's a very typical high school boy, arrived and naturally wanted to stay in the cemetery and goof off for a while. For some reason, with him, we just started acting dumb and it was less scary, but I remember it just kept making these wide circles around us. It always stayed out of sight, but you could hear it as it moved. Occasionally it would come a bit closer and then seem to dart further away again. Eventually we left, and I spent a long time researching it, and even reached out to a paranormal group in Champaign for advice. The guy I talked to had never heard of it, but wanted to document what we saw. We met up with him and did an interview, but the group never did an investigation. Fast forward a few years later, and I'm living in Aurora, Colorado. I met one of my closest friends in about 2012, and we really hit it off because we were both into the paranormal. When I eventually told him about what I had seen, his jaw hit the floor. He told me he had seen the same thing and told me his story. He described exactly what I had seen, but he had seen his under the porch in Thornton. It was crouched down and squatting. He thinks he had startled it while it was eating because he said it was hunched over something it was holding. He comes from Navajo Apache background, and when we first met, his best get was Skinwalker or Wendigo. But then, and especially now, he said he has doubts about either of those being the answer. He was dating a girl at the time whose mom claimed to be a medium. She said she thought someone woke something up and it was now angry. We both have serious doubts about that one. The stranger part came when he and I both brought it up. We both started having very intense nightmares about it. His were worse than mine and lasted much longer. There was also a punctuated 6-month period of time that was full of bad luck and anxiety for both of us. I always sort of brushed it off, just saying we were psyching ourselves out, until I started reading another story that was just like mine, and it described sightings punctuated with nightmares also. I've read a ton of other stories by other people on the internet. I've dug through mounds of lore and cryptid lists, and I still don't feel like I have an answer of what this thing was. My best guess at this point was the nightmares aren't coincidental, and that this is something that is interdimensional. It seems like it can interact with physical things around it, but I've never heard anyone tell first-hand account of being physically attacked or even touched. I've speculated on what it could be for hours, and the only conclusion I've come up with is I don't have a concrete answer. It doesn't act exactly like any of the other cryptids we know: Wendigo, Skinwalker, Ghoul, Fleshgate, etc. Please, if you guys have any ideas, post something in the comments. Our second encounter of the evening is a Dogman encounter. I used to work in Princeton, Minnesota from 2005 to 2006. I lived in St. Cloud and commuted the 40 minutes to work by taking State Highway 95 between St. Cloud and Princeton. In March of 2006, I hit a deer at night on the way home from work, so I was a little more cautious and attentive when driving after that. The place where I struck the deer was the northern edge of the Shelburne National Wildlife Refuge, which butts up to the highway. Consequently, I would slow down to about 45 miles an hour when I would approach the refuge and drive holding down the high beam switch, which allows me to drive with both high and low beams on at the same time. In mid-April, about 6 weeks after I struck the deer, I was passing the refuge, driving slow, looking for deer. I saw the reflection of eyes, like a deer or a raccoon, near the south bank on the highway. I slowed down further, and the animal bolted 20 feet in front of the car. It crossed the road from south to north. I wish I could tell you what it was another deer, but I'm convinced that it was not. Whatever it was, it moved on 2 legs, not 4. I only saw it for a few seconds, and my adrenaline was pumping, thinking I was going to hit another animal, but I can see the flashes of what I saw in front of me in my mind's eye as clear as yesterday. Its forward limbs didn't touch the ground. It was bipedal, maybe 6 or 7 feet tall. It was brown or maybe a dark gray. Its eyes were reflective, like a deer's. Its limbs were long and robust, like a man's, not spindly like a deer's. I think that it was covered with hair or fur, accounting for the color, and the shape of its face was not flat like a man's, but to a point, having a snout like a dog. It ran north across the highway, and I accelerated west toward St. Cloud. Damnedest thing I ever saw. I have a degree in anthropology with a minor in biology and a degree to teach social studies. I'm a teetotaler and have no serious religious convictions. The point is I'm not prone to flights of fancy or wild imagination. I didn't see a deer or a black bear, and if it was a man in a suit, he ran the risk of becoming roadkill. This looked a lot like what folks were describing as the Michigan Dogman or the Beast of Bray Road. I get the sense that it did have triangular ears. I can't be totally sure of that, though. I didn't see its feet. However, the walk seemed like there was a spring in its step that makes me think that it wasn't walking flat-footed, but on the balls of its feet. Well, there you have it, guys. Two really fascinating encounters that definitely strike a chord. I don't know about you, but encounter one really creeps me the hell out. Anything that just is completely nondescript and lurking around in the dark in a cemetery just says, no, get the fuck out of there immediately. I especially enjoy the Dogman encounter. I love Dogman encounters as much as you guys do. That's why I know this interview that I have, you guys are going to love, and I'm piecing it together right after I upload this for you guys. So with that, guys, I want to appreciate the rapid growth my channel is getting and all the comments. You guys are a very supportive and great group, and my channel wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. So thank you, guys. I truly appreciate it. And with that, I hope everyone has a good night, and I hope you catch the story tomorrow night. Have a good one, guys.